Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more overly sarcastic productions. This time we have a new miscellaneous myth. This time Thoth. Thoth. It just doesn't sound right. I don't like... No, it's a stupid name. Thoth. It sounds like I'm saying sauce with a lisp. Fuck you, whoever made that name. Gambles with the moon. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you followed me over at Twitch and also joined the Discord. Now that all that's out of the way, let's just go ahead and dive into this new miscellaneous myth, shall we?
Those deliberately unsatisfying videos where it looks like something's set up to be absolutely flawless, but then something misses by inches and the whole thing falls apart.
Yes.
The lunisolar calendar is like that. It should be a beautiful, perfect system of wheels within wheels, pleasingly regular orbits with completely predictable outcomes. And it kind of is, but the problem is the lunar month, aka the time it takes the moon to fully orbit the Earth, is 30 days, and the solar year, the time it takes the Earth to fully orbit the Sun, is 365 days, which means
Actually, isn't it 365 days and a quarter?
12 lunar months is 5 days short of a solar year. That's already annoying enough. If you measure your years
Solar year, Earth comes roughly, exact definition used. Lunar month extremely convenient and easy to observe, but does not align with the solar year, causing seasonal drift. This can have detrimental effects on agricultural societies that need to know when to plant, when to harvest, and when to expect damaging weather. Annual discrepancy greater than 5 days, problem noticeable within 6 years.
By the moon, which is extremely convenient due to its phase visibly changing every day. Within 6 years, the sun is a whole lunar cycle off position, which has a noticeable impact on seasonal weather. If you measure your years by the sun, which is a little more difficult.
Solar year allows for totally accurate prediction of seasons and corresponding average weather, but much more difficult to observe than the lunar cycle. Progress through the solar year is most readily observed through when certain stars begin to be visible in the pre-dawn sky, aka its heliacal rising, less convenient than the moon.
Difficult unless you're really paying attention to the position
totally.
of the stars. The seasons might stay consistent, but the lunar cycle is 5 days offset, and you can't use full moons to demarcate the months anymore. And it gets worse. Technically, those cyclic lengths are only approximations. Our day length isn't some celestial unit inscribed on the heavens that the sun and the moon adhere to. It's just how fast the Earth spins. There's no reason the moon would orbit exactly 30 times slower than the Earth turns. So technically, a solar year is actually 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. And a lunar month is 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 2.9 seconds.
Okay.
There's no way
Why is there math in my mythology?
to get those perfectly lined up, and any calendar that's based on whole days as its smallest unit, which is all of them, will inevitably have to account for rounding errors within a few short years. This betrayal of modular arithmetic hurts my soul and single-handedly convinced me that if there is a creator god responsible for the turning of the celestial spheres, they're a real asshole. Now, while almost every culture
Sounds like gods themselves, yeah.
has its own way of reckoning the calendar, almost all of them have accounted for this discrepancy in one way or another. Ancient Babylon favored lunar months for reckoning time and made up the time slip with an intercalary month added every once in a while, roughly 7 times every 19 years, to make up the missing time so the calendar stayed in rough alignment with the observed seasons. The Hebrew calendar started off very similar to the Babylonian one, but was replaced with a calculated calendar rather than an observational one over the course of the first millennium CE, which got pretty solidly locked in by our boy Maimonides in 1178
I'm so
CE.
confused.
The Mayan calendar combined a 365-day solar year with a much more important 260-day cycle of 13 20-day units called the Tzolk'in that doesn't have a clear astronomical origin, but does make scholars argue a lot, which is always fun. And then there's the ancient Egyptians, who created a civil calendar sometime around 2000 BCE by rather ergonomically supplementing their 12 lunar months with a 5-day intercalary period to make sure every year lined up with a 365-day solar cycle. These 5 days rounded off the year and were seen as the birthdays of several major gods, and that's the kind of concept that definitely has a myth attached, right? Like, come on, that's a golden opportunity. So today let's talk about how those oh-so-convenient 5 bonus days got tacked onto the calendar and rounded everything off nicely, except for leap years, but they didn't do those, so shush. So, this story
We just spent half the video talking about lunar and solar cycles. I love it, Red. I fucking love it.
is recounted by Greek historian, philosopher, and priest of Apollo Plutarch in his Moralia, written around 100 AD, in a section that is specifically about Plutarch's impression of Egyptian culture, their religious practices, and their gods. And while we're going to be discussing the Egyptian gods he was clearly talking about, it is important to note that Plutarch went out of his way to localize his story by assigning corresponding Greek gods to several Egyptian gods in this tale. It was a popular form of syncretism around this time to basically claim that other cultures with other gods were really just worshipping the Greek gods, but, like, Wrong. So in this story, Thoth gets cast as Hermes, Set is regularly referred to as Typhon, primordial earth and sky gods Geb and Nut are called Cronus and Rhea, Ra gets downgraded to just the sun, and Nephthys is briefly called Aphrodite, who is then described as consorting with Typhon, which I don't think is supported in the Greek version, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. So our story begins with the sun god Ra pissed off. This isn't a strictly uncommon occurrence, but this particular fit of pique is the result of sky goddess Nut and earth
What's got him so upset? Who cares? Bring me that horizon.
god Geb boning down. It's not entirely clear why this bugs him so much, but whatever the reason, Ra
But why? I have to fly through you too. What? I have to fly through you two every day?
lays down an official heavenly decree that Nut cannot give birth any day of the year. Yep, all 360 of them are strictly off limits. This is a bummer for a lot of reasons, and
Boo-hoo. Ooh. Someone should probably fix that.
Thoth, god of wisdom and assorted smart guy things, decides to help her out. So he gambles with
As the defender of travelers, I expected you to be better at protecting your pieces. And I expected you to write down the rules.
Khonshu the moon god on Games of Senate and absolutely smokes him, winning a small fraction of his total moonlight, about 1/70th. Now the moon is totally dark only once a lunar cycle, once every 30 days, and 12 times every 360 days. So if you divide up the 348 days when the moon is actually visible, 1/70th is almost exactly 5 days. So Thoth takes his winnings and uses them to expand the calendar, appending his 5 new days to the 360 that are already there. These days are, of course,
You reordered our cosmology for this? You left a very exploitable loophole. The year?
Outside the parameters of Ra's initial curse, and Nut is free to have as many babies as she wants. She proceeds to do just that, popping out Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys in quick succession, rounding out the Great Aeneid in one fell swoop, and as a happy consequence, perfectly smoothing out the observed solar year. Except that, they didn't do leap days, and because this intercalary period was so
The rising of Sirius gets a day later every 4 years, so to correct for the discussion, we should have 6th epigomenal day every 4 years, and then they didn't.
deeply religiously significant that the idea of adding a leap day was politically and religiously controversial and was actively shot down when they tried it in the 200s BCE. So the whole calendar year very slowly slipped out of alignment with the actual solar year and the observed seasons. But look, it's fine, okay? Sometimes reading the precise mathematical turnings of the celestial spheres is just a little more art than science. 500.
When I was a kid, I was very frustrated that the calendar was confusing. The months were different lengths, and October, November, and December weren't the 8th, 9th, and 10th months like the names implied. Yeah, turns out the calendars are stupid rabbit hole goes much deeper than those childish considerations. Calendars determined by the heliacal rising of Sirius are the best. Fight me, whatever that means. That was Miscellaneous Myths, Thoth Gambles with the Moon. This was fun. Actually wasn't at all what I was expecting. We got 2 minutes of the actual mythology, and then the other 2.5 minutes were Red rambling of the yelling about solar and lunar cycles, which totally fair. I get it. I like it. It's still enjoyable. But yeah. That was Miscellaneous Myths, Thoth Gambles with the Moon. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.